16 of you, you'll have to contend with half. What happens if there's 100, 200 of you? When we start talking priorities, okay, let's stay in finance. From the budget to the debt, the movement of money, the banks, the greediness of banks, regulation if necessary, because we just went through that financial crisis. That's just on finance. And then you've got the other side. Let's look at energy. Gee, what a big problem. We're having brownouts. Coal plants, environment, sustainable energy, you know, biodiversity and all that stuff. Then let's go to agriculture. Di ba, ang dami, water, irrigation. My gosh, before you end the day, you're still with the same problems, much less my issue. And my issue is, well, why do we have gated villages? Why separate the rich from the poor? You know, I live right in front of that gate. Hindi pwede. You know, those are the little issues that he really, maybe he has to answer it. I totally agree. But right now, my gosh, I think his plate is very, very full.
Well, I studied this last night and the other night. And I thought, and I talked with some people, you know, and I thought one of the things really he should address is jump-starting the socio-economic, addressing the socio-economic problem. And how do you do that? It's simple. Number one, keep in mind that the year 2013, we are going to breach the 100 million mark. We'll have more than 100 million people. That's one. Therefore, you're going to have food problems. You're going to have housing problems, all sorts of problems, because everything starts from people. Number two, you must have income for them. And you must also have peace and order. So, for these three areas of problems, I'm suggesting, I don't know if you agree, that number one, we should be able to generate exports. And how do you do that? Still, the biggest market in the world today, whether you agree with me or not, that they are recovering from the last recession, is the United States. Therefore, why don't we negotiate a free trade agreement, a better preferred nation agreement, preferred nation treaty with preferred nations treaty with the United States? After all, they have the power, they have the purchasing power. Once they get off that hump of consumer spending slack, you know, they are going to be back. And the prediction is in the next 8-10 months, they're going to be on that hill. So let us take care of that. 8-10 months is not too short, not too long. Number two, after you get that free trade agreement with the United States, let's go into the debt for equity swap with the United Nations. The UN has agreed to this. In fact, Joe Di Venecia, when he was a speaker, was starting on it. But he was not able to push through because he was overtaken by events. That can be taken over now, you know. And there's nothing wrong by starting that. Then the other thing is settle the Mindanao problem. Because without that kind of settlement, and this is the time he can play China and the U.S. against the other, you know, it's simply saying, let us have the national interest of the Philippines at heart. Always, all the time, you know. And maybe we can end up ahead. I don't know.
If I may. Go ahead. The question of free trade agreement with the United States, that may be easier said than done because we are not competitive compared to China, Vietnam, on consumer production, item production. The second point you made?
Equity.
Debt equity, yes. Well, in fact, the United Nations has already more or less adopted such a strategy. But understandably, the creditor nations are reluctant, especially when it comes to debtor nations who really can afford to pay back. I understand that the creditor nations have already condoned the debts of several black African countries. So that's another maybe whistling in the dark at this time. No? It's not going to prosper soon. Now, what strikes me is this. There's agreement, general agreement that probably our biggest economic problem is the unmitigated growth of population, okay? And then suddenly you have a Secretary of Education who is a Catholic brother. You know, it's just one step below a priest. And you remember Napiko Nagad, when he was asked about his position on sex education. Because this may be a canar, but I understand the reason Brother Luistro is there is because of the sisters. They're naturally against the reproductive health bill. So unless we can solve this problem first, because at the rate we are growing in number, we need at least a sustained economic growth of at least 12% a year. And with the present economic we're unable to attract foreign investments now. Hopefully, when President Aquino starts, getting into things, the foreign investors would come in. As I said in an earlier column, I said, why do our presidents like to travel so much? Because they always use as an excuse attracting foreign direct investments. But I said, look at Singapore, Thailand, Malaysia. You hardly ever hear of their heads of government or states going on trips abroad because they did their work at home first. Once they've done the work, they didn't even have to travel anymore to attract investments. They came automatically. But then we had a president. No, I never recognized her as a president. And a foreign secretary whose favorite pastime was traveling at government expense. Always on the pretext that they are going abroad to, to attract foreign investments. What have they attracted? Nothing. Yeah. So I certainly would like to see those things happen. But I think we have to be a bit more realistic. To me, what is the most important thing for him to do now is to straighten our house, put it in order. And that means no corruption. Make your stand on this reproductive health problem, Kasi kahit anong advancement natin sa economy, pagka 2.3%, we have to have a sustained 12% growth.
Maybe his first answer would be he's not going to get married. The other thing is, I realized, Ray, that that was easier said than done. But I was banking on the kind of goodwill and the kind of reception that the foreign countries have given Noynoy, that maybe he may half succeed in the negotiations. Knock on wood, we will have to do that. Anybody else? Yes.
Okay, if we're going to talk about doable things that the president can offer us, I don't know, but I guess it's more on choosing the right people in the government, because I guess it's what the people are very tired of. Okay, looking at the same people in the government. So it's anyway, that's his battle cry. Okay, walang corrupt, walang mahirap. So I guess he should start from that. Okay, choosing the right people.
So we need an early revamp. That's what you're suggesting. Early revamp.
After the first week.
After the first week. Next set of cabinet members.
Let's hear from the student. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, basically, sir, there's this negotiation that's happening regarding the U.S. and the Philippines trade. What's happening right now is that I've read an article regarding that there will be a zero tariff negotiation between the Philippines and the U.S. But the problem with that is to actually establish a good negotiation, not only when